Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Ken. I'm Ken Biberaj, a managing director at Savills, a leading tenant advisory commercial real estate firm. We are in week 32 of social distancing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and only 12 days from the presidential election. In the news today, the Justice Department has brought an antitrust lawsuit against Google, and the Pope has expressed support for same-sex civil unions. Today's topic is economic development during a pandemic. We're joined by Michael Finney, the CEO of Miami-Dade Beacon Council, Victor Hoskins, CEO of the Fairfax Economic Development Authority, and Adriana Cruz, the Executive Director of the Economic Development and Tourism for the state of Texas. And she is on a call right now with the governor, trying to win some business, and she'll jump right in when she gets off. So great to see you guys.
Good to see you too. And
I know we're all wondering who's she pitching, right? Why aren't they going to Miami and Fairfax? I mean,
I envy her. I wish that's what I was doing right now.
It's okay. I got all the big companies listening to Coffee with Ken, guys. You're in the right place.
There we go. I'm good.
Well, it's a pleasure seeing you guys. This is obviously a fun topic in the sense that everyone's trying to navigate what's happening, and there's just so much uncertainty in the world. I'd love to kind of get a quick read from you about how the last 7 months have been for you individually, your organization, and also your mission and your work, right? I'm sure you started the year in January with a kind of certain set of priorities and objectives, and obviously the pandemic has not cooperated with us. So how is your office changed or evolved or adapted during this time? Why don't we start with you, Michael, since Victor has home court advantage since we're neighbors here in Fairfax County.
All right, sounds good, Ken, and thank you so much for having me as part of your session today. So we're actually on a fiscal year that starts October 1. So when the crisis hit, we were about at mid-year in our fiscal year, and things were moving along exceptionally well. We had a fairly aggressive plan that we had put in place for, our major KPIs are new companies, new jobs, investment by those companies, et cetera. And we were humming right along, in fact, well ahead of plan. And of course, then the crisis hit, and we started to see significant impacts, particularly with small businesses. Mm-hmm. And because, Florida and Miami in particular has a lot of hospitality and tourism, that industry was particularly hit hard, restaurants, hotels, et cetera.
Yeah.
But what we saw was no slowdown in our core business development activity, because we really don't focus on hospitality and tourism. We focus on other other sectors like Sure. technology, banking and finance, aerospace, healthcare and life sciences, et cetera. And those sectors, interestingly enough, managed to remain relatively strong. In fact, we landed some very big projects during the year, and our year was so positive that literally we had the best year we've had in the last 20 years.
Wow.
And the vast majority of that happened right during the crisis. I apologize if my dogs are making a little noise in the background.
I got two boys, so any second now they're going to barge right in here. So.
Yeah. But yeah, so overall it was a real positive year. The biggest challenge we had, though, is that we had to make a real switch from strictly focusing on our core activities to also paying close attention to a lot of the small businesses that I referenced earlier, because mm-hmm. they needed access to resources and connectivity that just simply didn't exist within the small business community. So a large company that we might normally work with, they have access to the best accountants, the best lawyers, the best bankers, and so on. Small businesses, not so much. And so as a lot of the state, local, federal programs that were there intended to help these companies, mm-hmm. when those started to bubble up, most of the small businesses were not prepared to access those. And so we found ourselves needing to really modify our work effort and focus on them. And we literally ended up redirecting about 20% of our team to focus exclusively on the needs of small business.
Oh, that's incredible. Wow. And Victor?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're on a fiscal year that starts July 1. And I joined August of last year. So I had been on the job about 6 months when COVID hit. So it was one of those like, whoop, okay. I thought I was coming to the place where everything was okay. And previously, after we had landed Amazon in Arlington, I was looking for something more challenging. And one of the reasons I came to Fairfax County is that at that time, they were trying to pivot toward, how do you use talent as a competitive advantage? So I was working through that issue. So these new services that we were putting out, and when COVID hit, we went from 10% telework to 100% telework in 48 hours. That was the biggest change. Just that, literally. which means we had to change the way that we met. We started meeting weekly on Mondays as a general staff meeting, as opposed to monthly, but every Monday. We brought in our international offices, which we only really did calls with quarterly. We shifted that to weekly. So everybody's together. Here's the same message every Monday, and go at it. The great thing is that we have the same KPIs as all economic development agency, the number of companies, new jobs, retaining jobs, CapEx, lease square feet new, lease square feet retained. All of that is, part of our criteria. The great thing is that we hit 18% above on our square footage for the first time in about a decade. And we hit 15% above on our jobs, about 2.4 million square feet on the lease side, and then about somewhere around 11,000 jobs. And usually we hit around 9,200. So we were really pleased with the year. The board was pleased with what we did. We had the same challenge that Mike had, which is we had to figure out how to address small business. The great thing is that the county really came up with what I call the real direct hands-on work. A lot of the administrative work, and our role really fell to marketing. So we started marketing directly to these companies, providing them with technical assistance. We created a 12 installment workshop series that was free to any entrepreneur in Northern Virginia, not just Fairfax County. Because we were working with 10 jurisdictions all together. We created an alliance. So funny, we had created this alliance in September, and we wondered, we were trying to figure out, okay, so is this necessary? When COVID hit, it was essential. It was like table stakes, and it made a huge difference. And we were to help about 6,500 businesses in like a 4-month period. And normally that's an annual number for us on small business side. So we feel really good about where we are.
So I want to tease that out a little bit, because I think there's some a little corollary here to, I think, Michael's efforts. So let's talk about two things: Amazon and then collaboration, right? Like you think about these economic development offices, and this is a little bit of a competition, right? Like it's about jobs, it's about numbers. You're trying to do a certain amount of growth for your area. But Victor, we've talked a lot about this. It really is kind of about just growing the pie and teaming up and collaborating, regionally. Even though Arlington got Amazon, Michael, I've read a lot about your efforts and what Miami put forward in terms of Amazon, how you collaborate. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you guys approached Amazon. That was, I think, right at the start of your tenure, and what legacy benefits came out of kind of that groundwork. You got thrown in the deep end, I think, on that effort. So I'd love to hear kind of your Amazon kind of story, and then also, Victor, a little bit more on just this collaboration and why it's important and why it shouldn't just be more competitive between these areas.
Yeah. Congratulations to Victor and the team on landing Amazon. We were one of the finalists, as I'm sure you know. And I mean, it's just a lot of detailed work that goes into that. Victor said he wanted a more challenging project. And I think because of how they approached it, it's probably one of the more challenging projects that I've worked on over my career. Not because of anything other than this very open process. And when it's an open process like that, it created incredible back pressure from every single community. And then in our case, we decided to collaborate across 3 counties. So it wasn't just Miami-Dade, which is 2.8 million people in 34 different municipalities, but it also included Broward County, which is that's Fort Lauderdale is the hub city, and then Palm Beach County. So we take these 3 very large South Florida counties. We decided to collaborate and submit a single proposal. And it really worked out well. The 3 of us and my other 2 colleagues, Bob Swindell and Kelly Smallridge, we worked together exceptionally well. And as Ken mentioned, I had arrived in Miami in June, and that solicitation hit the streets around September. And as it turns out, the 3 organizations, Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami, we were getting to know each other, and we actually hosted a 3-team meeting in the month of August and talked about ways that we could work together collaboratively. And our strategy was simple. Let's make sure that everybody understands that South Florida is the best place for every business opportunity there may be. And once a company decides that they want to be in South Florida, then we can fight like family members over who ultimately lands in their community. But the clear answer is they will be in South Florida, and we will all benefit from the talent opportunities that are there, the residential housing opportunities that are there, the commercial space, because it will spin off many other things. And so that kind of an approach is what we've been using over the 3 years or so that I've been in Miami, and my colleagues in the other communities, every month, routinely, we're on the phone, we're on Zoom, we're talking together about things that we need to do to move the needle and things that make a difference across the entire region. And what it's allowed us to do is to think deeper about this idea of collaboration in the county that we're in, within the community, and then of course on a regional basis. And there's a significant place for both, because as I know Ken will tell you, at least in my experience, it's not uncommon for communities that are contiguous to each other to recruit companies from each other, as opposed to focusing on the bigger picture of finding companies that are in a growth mode who need to find other locations for their expansions versus trying to get one to move from one side of town to the other. So this idea of collaboration is critical. We take it very much to heart, and we spend an awful lot of our time and resources ensuring that we're doing the kinds of things that build on mutual support, as opposed to destructive activities that sometimes happen in this economic development world.
Interesting. Victor?
Yeah, sure. So Ken, like Michael, we had this situation of understanding, and actually, to be honest with you, the state of Virginia, and in particular, Stephen Murray, who runs the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, really promoted us regional applications for going after Amazon. We accepted it in 4 jurisdictions. We're working together. So it was Loudoun County, Fairfax County, Alexandria, and Arlington. And I was running Arlington. And I had been for about 5 years inviting all the other economic development organizations to events, and which was strange in and of itself. And also we had all, generally agreed that we would not poach, which is, taking someone from across the border, because there's no additive value to that. And we all have sectors. So what we did was we really crafted this, tried to develop a single brand, which is Innovation Lives Here, with the NOVA of innovation pumped out, because that's NOVA, Northern Virginia. And man, it took off. I mean, the brand was solid. Our application was incredibly detailed, as everyone that competed and certainly got on the short list, you had to respond in a way that, was directly at the questions. And talent was a huge piece of this. So creating a talent pipeline, bringing in the formula of tech campuses. Virginia Tech ended up landing in Alexandria. Amazon headquarters landed in my county, Arlington at that time. And Fairfax County and Loudoun County are benefiting because about 33% of the jobs are going to land in Fairfax. We know that. That's just the math. So everyone wins. We're expecting a total of 100,000 jobs to hit the region as a result of Amazon. Amazon somewhere between 25,000 and 37,000, depending on which scenario they run. But what really became important was how we work together. And let me tell you what were the elements of that how. There were a couple of things. One, trust. We had to trust each other. We were sharing information that we'd never shared before. Why? Because we didn't have to. Well, if you're going to go after something big, you better have a big team. We were only 2.2 million people. He said one county was 2.2 million. I mean, that was all 10 of us together. Can you imagine if Arlington had gone alone, 229,000? Arlington was 26 square miles. We would have looked like a mouse. So really this identity, really having a trust and sharing information as one entity was important. The second thing we had to do is we actually had to support each other. You should have seen some of the presentations. We coordinated on all of our visits when they came to visit and to visit our sites. There was not a negative word spoken about any jurisdiction. We played off of each other's strengths, and that was really, really important. And I think the third thing that was really probably the most important was the ability to say, okay, and I said this in a meeting, by the way, when we got down to the end of the negotiation, it was just us and Alexandria, and Amazon was sitting there trying to make a decision. I actually said this at the table. I said, look, I do not care if you land in Alexandria. That is okay with me. And I will be fine with everybody that I work for. And I am more than happy to tell you this, and I mean it. Please pick a location that fits your need, because if it fits your need, I will win. Yeah. And then listen to this. Stephanie Landrum, who runs Alexandria Economic Development, she said the same thing.
Amazing.
And it wasn't like we were trying to sacrifice, there'd be a sacrificial lamb because we were going to win. We had the understanding that there was a greater goal here. And what we're trying to do is transform the region into a more innovative economy, more commercialization out of our technology that we develop. don't let the iPhone technology be developed and then, it's manufactured in China and it's shipped out of Silicon Valley. Come on, give me a break. We got to figure out how to make it work here. So I think that those were the three things that were extraordinarily important.
So I think COVID's an accelerant, right? That's one of the themes we hear with all these talks and every topic, right? Things are just moving, 5 or 10 years quicker. That exact point. So much is made offshore. We faced a challenge here domestically with getting PPE because so much was offshore. Are you seeing renewed kind of commitment and focus from companies to expand domestically? What are your thoughts on new sectors that might be emerging for growth, whether it's on the manufacturing, industrial, office side? What are you seeing as a kind of emerging trends and sectors?
Michael?
Maybe new than previously.
So, we are seeing an incredible amount of technology that's bubbling up as a result of this, and it's covering a number of different sectors. I could start with, fintech and banking and financial services. A lot of interesting opportunities happening there, and we are seeing some very direct benefits from that very early on.
Congrats on Blackstone, by the way. That was
of course.
Love to hear about that too. Yeah.
That's a wonderful example. And when we think of Blackstone, we don't typically think of their technology arm, but that's essentially what's located here. It's the technology arm, so or a technology center, and that's really where we see the greatest opportunity coming out of this. In fact, as we looked at our work plan and what we needed to do to help small business, our tech committee came together and helped us build out a portal that allowed us to aggregate virtually every resource that was being made available to help businesses and individuals in our whole county. So whether it was one of the CARES Act programs, a state program, a local program, no matter what it was, other nonprofit organizations that had resources available to help individuals, we were able to aggregate all of that in one location so that whether you were a business or an individual looking for help, you could get access to it. Real simple portal, bizhelp.miami. But what's really nice, if you were a company coming in, you could say you were a company and you're looking to access the payroll protection program or the PPP. And all you have to do is identify your banker, and literally you could, through our website, it would take you right into that bank's application process. So it was a really seamless process. And our tech committee helped to develop that. We ended up, the Miami-Dade County set up a small business revolving loan program called the RISE Fund. Another one of our tech companies developed a process to very rapidly review applications, because you can imagine with the number of small businesses, there's thousands of applications coming in, and we were using our CDFIs as the vehicle to actually award these dollars. So imagine CDFIs who on an annual basis might see a couple hundred applications suddenly facing thousands of applications. It just simply doesn't work. And so one of our tech companies developed a tool that allows every application to literally get to a point of either a go or a no-go. In other words, they meet all the requirements, they have all the documentation, and now it lands on a lending officer's desk, and they can make a very quick decision about making that loan, as opposed to the normal and traditional due diligence process that can be cumbersome. And so we've been able to accelerate the throughput of our CDFIs with another one of our tech companies. And then most recently, one of our tech companies launched a social distancing app that allows you to very quickly identify anyone that might be within your space that is potentially infected with COVID-19. It's very slick. They're doing some testing right now, and we're excited about that. And then lastly, we felt it was important to do what Victor and his team up in the Washington, D.C. area does so well, and that is focus on this whole tech talent pipeline and how important that is to businesses. And so we've built out another portal that's miamitech.works. That portal is intended to help individuals, whether you are a high school graduate with no prior skills looking to break into tech at the entry-level stages, or a seasoned veteran looking for that next opportunity for a $200,000 a year job at Blackstone. This portal was designed to cover the entire spectrum to meet the talent needs of businesses. So we think that our recovery and this region's long-term prospects are going to be driven by tech and everything that's tech-enabled. And whether it's procuring PPE, or whether it's developing the next pharma that's likely, or a vaccine that's likely to help us. We think tech is going to ultimately carry the day in this community.
Interesting. Victor, let's dive into talent. You have such an interesting background. You were in DC, Deputy Mayor, Economic Development. There, I think it was a challenge where the district owned a lot of land. So you had to figure out how to get it developed and get things out of the ground to get people interested in coming. You come to Arlington, there was a ton of real estate because of BRAC, and there was a space that you needed to fill. So Nestle, March of Dimes, Amazon, you can kind of play with that vacancy. And now you're in Fairfax County. We got a lot of big headquarters and Capital One and companies. Talent seems to be the situation, right? How many jobs are available in Fairfax County alone? And how are you addressing this kind of talent gap that Michael was just talking about?
Yeah, so right now in Fairfax County, there are 42,000 job openings right now. And in Northern Virginia, there are 80,000. In the greater DC region, there are over 120,000. So we're really a talent dearth right now, and that is the problem. So what we've done is we basically created a talent initiative that really focuses on how do you attract, how do you connect, and then how do you help execute the attraction and retention of talent. And we started it with a website. And when we opened this website up, our original traffic was about 800 hits a month. We're now at 20,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy. The first virtual career fair that we did virtual career fairs because you can't see people in person. So we found this platform in Arlington County. We actually use an Arlington business from Fairfax. And they basically, Brazen is the organization, they create this platform where you can have companies with recruiters that get connected with people who registered that are looking for jobs. So just as an example, the first one, we had 13 companies. There were about 3,000 job openings. They range from Northrop Grumman to Boost, small minority firm, about 600 people, rapidly growing. Northrop Grumman, historic, everybody knows who they are. But we had that long spread. And then on the academic side, we actually went to 30 universities. 7 of them were historically Black colleges because they said they want a diverse population. And we took these 30 universities and we basically worked with their career offices to get at their seniors and recent grads. So if the person was out of school 1 to 3 years, we wanted to get to them. Or if they were rising seniors, we wanted to get to them. We had just as the first one we did, we had about 1,000 people show up. And it was fantastic. And actually this minority owned firm that I told you is rapidly growing. This woman said she created a pipeline of 75 employees just from this one event.
Wow,
and
that's incredible.
And we made it free to her and free to them. We pay for it, the county does. The county funds it, and it has really turned out very well. We did a second one of these in July 14th. So we did that one at the end of May, and then it took about 6 weeks to get this one together. This one was really focused on tech companies and mid-career professionals. We got 17 tech companies ranging from Amazon Web Services to Northrop Grumman to FireEye to just a whole range of companies. Leidos, all of them. They had about 4,000 openings, and we recruited about 700 mid-career professionals, many of them with clearances that interviewed for these jobs. And the way it works out is that they have their own booth. The people come in, it's all virtual. They come in, they set a time, they do their interview, and then they go to the next interview. They can do up to 3 interviews, and companies can have as many recruiters as they want, and they usually have more recruiters when they have more positions open. We did a third one. We co-sponsored this one with the Hispanic Chamber. There were over 3,600 attendees to this thing. It was unbelievable. And
you could track the geography of where these people are coming from to participate?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Actually, that's one of the great things about the way that it works. Yeah, it's free, but you got to give your information.
Yeah.
That's the great part. So we have data, and they get free interviews basically. But this has worked out very well. We were dealing with displaced workers. And the last one we did was October 8th. And in that one, we actually had Wegmans and Walmart and we even have Microsoft in there and Amazon Web Services. But it was really more pointed at the positions that were less technical and really more administrative, marketing, or warehouse distribution, or even shoppers. Amazon is hiring 500 shoppers a day, for example, for Whole Foods. They're doing that for Whole Foods.
Yeah.
So So these are the kinds of connections that we've been making. And someone asked me the other day, what makes me happy? What makes me happy? When somebody goes to work.
Yeah.
Because to me, when somebody goes to work, that saves a household. And you save enough households, you save a community. And that's what we're in economic development for. But that's really why I'm so excited about this. And it's never been done before. Even if you do it wrong, it's okay.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about this, Michael, right? Like going to work, like Victor said, I mean, that used to mean getting in your car and driving somewhere, right, to downtown. Now it's you walk into the next room and you're on a Zoom. So how is all of this going to play out? I mean, what are you hearing from companies in terms of meeting their talent shortages virtually or letting people work remote completely? I mean, what are you seeing and hearing? I mean, we see it a little bit on the commercial real estate side. People are kind of grappling, I don't think it's going to be this mass exodus of cities like some people are talking about, or that people are just going to give up offices completely. But this is opening up folks to the opportunity of working, out of the office or being more flexible.
Yeah. I mean, like with everything, I think we all have learned an awful lot in these past 7 or 8 months. Certainly, our staff has been working remotely since April, and we're still working remotely with a few people in and out of the office. But what's interesting now is that a few of our staff have now started saying they would like to begin coming into the office. In fact, there's 2 or 3 now that are coming in on a regular basis because it just makes sense for them. And so it's a bit of in some cases, it makes perfect sense to do virtually everything remotely. And in other cases, there's really a need for that interaction with others, especially creative types. And I think you're going to see a lot of the tech companies that have gone to remote working kind of as a rule for extended periods of time. I think you'll start to see that they're going to notice some significant losses in the degree of innovation and other things that would likely happen when you have multiple people together able to bounce off ideas off of one another. And it's not as easy when you're trying to do it via technology. So we expect it to be a new way of doing business. We will never go back to our office style of old. And most companies that I'm talking to are saying the same thing. But for most, it's going to be a hybrid of what we were versus where we are right now, where there will be opportunities to work in a traditional office environment while also having opportunities to do things remotely. We're finding that, as an example, our most interesting finding was that we were still able to do a lot of business. Miami is essentially the gateway to Latin America. So a ton of activity in Latin America for us on the economic development front. We can still do a lot of that. And frankly, it's far more cost effective and efficient because we can be in Brazil and Argentina and Colombia and Mexico and other places all in the same day, where that's much more challenging if you're trying to get on a road and go, or much more expensive. And the same is true for Europe and other places. So to some extent, our business attraction efforts have become much more efficient, and we haven't lost as much productivity as you would think. But then at the end of the day, they still need to make that visit to Miami to see what we've got. And so making sure that we have, transportation and other things, because the airlines are not back where they were. And that's a big way for, those companies to now get on the ground and see what the options are. Because that's the real closer, is when they get here and they have a chance to see all that we've represented via technology.
Well, look, I want to welcome Adriana Cruz back. How are you? Hardest working person in show business. I mean, everyone's dying to hear, who's coming to Texas? What's going on in Texas?
We'll find out in a couple of months.
Oh, amazing. Well, look, we were chatting a little bit about business attraction as well, and talent and pipeline and diversifying economies. Would love to hear what you guys are up to in Texas. I think I read recently you have upwards of 200 companies you're actively talking to about potential relocations to Texas. How is that going? How has your kind of day job maybe changed over the last 6 to 7 months in terms of even your direct pitch to companies thinking about where to be?
Sure. Well, it's been an interesting time and an unprecedented time. And I know everybody keeps using that word, unprecedented, but it has had a really large effect. Our project pipeline is very large, very active. As I mentioned, I couldn't be on the call at 2 because I had a call with a prospect at 2 that came in at the last minute. But one of the things that we've seen is as the pandemic sort of hit the country in March and we all had to shut down and travel stopped and so on, as Governor Abbott announced the plan to reopen the Texas economy and the methodology that he was going to use, and sort of a phased approach, and limited capacity for different types of industries, and looking at each industry individually. And we had conversations with industry leaders about how can you open but maintain the health and safety of Texans, because of course that was the priority of maintaining the health and safety of all of our citizens. And as that phased approach started happening, we started getting calls from CEOs who were saying, the state that we are in is not looking at things in that way, and we're questioning why we're located where we are. And as a good economic developer, I said, well, I question why you're where you are, because you certainly need to be in Texas. And so, that generated, and I mean, some of them we're doing our due diligence, we're not sure, but we're going to gather some information. But it sort of accelerated decisions that may have been sort of on the back burner, or they were sort of thinking about it. And then suddenly it became a more timely and a more necessary decision. And so we started getting a lot of these calls directly from CEOs. We started, as Michael was saying, the fact that we're all meeting remotely and visiting virtually allowed us an opportunity to do a lot of visits and a lot of outreach to site consultants that normally, it would be difficult to get on a plane and, fly to Chicago or fly to, wherever. Sure. So we were able to do more meetings and more outreach, and that, generated a lot of activity and interest as well. And then, in the middle of the pandemic, we had a big announcement with Tesla selecting Austin and Eastern Travis County for their Gigafactory. And that, so it's been that, it's just been sort of announcement after announcement. And of course, projects like Tesla get a lot of attention and a lot of, media coverage. Sure. But we've had small projects as well for communities like Kerrville. We got a tier 1 aerospace manufacturer with 170 jobs for Kerrville, Texas. That's really significant for that community and for that county. So it's been very busy, very diverse, and we don't see a slowdown.
That's great. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the levers you have at your disposal, each of you, right? Budgets are tight across the country for states, municipalities, localities. I'm sure your offices are all making tough decisions. How do you work to attract companies in the future? Is it going to be about the incentives? Is it about the ecosystem? Is it about the talent? What do you think are your strongest kind of levers at your disposal moving forward? And where do you think you need a little bit more help or resources or focus? Why don't we start with you, Victor, and we'll go around.
Well, the way this is going right now, I think the most important thing for us to do, honestly, is to learn to work with the people that are in our region more collaboratively. I think that is at the core of what we're trying to do right now. Because if you don't have a big team, you can't win the big game. And part of that is, and I know a lot of people in economic development, and I've been criticized about this, so I think I'm a little bit namby-pamby, but I did win Amazon. I like to try to remind them I am highly competitive. But what I do know is we have markets overseas. We have offices in Bangalore, in Mumbai, in Seoul, in Tel Aviv, in Berlin, and in London. And guess what? We're competing against those places. And you know what? I need the rest of this region. I need all 6 million people in the greater DC region. I need the 3 million workers in the DC region to be all united under one umbrella. Now, when a company comes, they can select where they want to go, but I really need them. That's what I need more than anything else is cooperation. So I'm working on that right now. We signed a Northern Virginia Economic Development Alliance with 10 jurisdictions. And right now I'm working with the folks in Washington, DC, and in suburban Maryland. As you know, I ran DC's economic development. I also ran the state of Maryland's economic development. So I know most of those people. Many of them have worked for me. So, so it's really easy, or work with me, and they know who I am. So for me, right now, that's my big mission. I'm not looking for any additional resources. Yeah. I'm looking for a way that we can work together so that we can win as a big team.
It's incredible. Michael, you want to go real quick?
Sure. I think there's two big things that always bubble right to the top. First and foremost is talent. Every time we talk to a company, first question is, can I get the talent I'm going to need in order to be successful long term? And I think the other two representatives, Adriana and Victor, they both are also from locations that clearly have very rich talent pools. Of course, the state of Texas, the Washington, D.C., that whole metro area, loaded with talent. Miami, of course, we attract from all over the state of Florida. So it's not just the we have great universities here, but we also attract from the rest of the state of Florida and really from all over the Southeast in particular. So it's a very easy location for us to get talent to locate here. And again, we're able to answer that question, but that is always question number one. And then, immediately behind that, our business climate related questions. How easy is it for me to get my business up and running? What's the tax climate? All those routine things that come up from a business climate standpoint it's the next big checkbox that we have to deal with. And then lastly, the easiest one of all for us is quality of living. Miami is just, South Florida is just a great location to live, work, and play. And so when you can check those other boxes and you've got a live one that's really interested, showing them a good time is not a difficult thing. It's a true story. My own personal story. I arrived here 3 years ago, and literally, my wife and I said, it was an executive search, and they said, we want you to come down. They love your background. I headed up economic development for the state of Michigan, and they said they really want you to come. So my wife and I said, well, let's just go and let's make a long weekend out of it. We haven't been to Miami in a long time. Let's just go and enjoy a nice weekend. So obviously we decided more than a nice weekend, because what we found is not only did the community have everything that was represented, it had a very strong talent base. It had great business climate opportunities like no income tax, low business costs of operating, fairly easy to get a business established, and a governmental entities at both the regional and local level that was willing to work with our organization in a very creative way to move projects along. So all the boxes were checked. And then my wife and I went to the beach on Saturday afternoon, and we said, we just can't get this in February in Michigan. So we decided that on the quality of living box, we could check that one very easily. So it's those three boxes: it's talent, it's business climate, and then quality of living. And we just think that those are available in abundance here, just as I'm sure my colleagues will also say.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So Adriana, I mean, it's fascinating doing economic development and tourism, right? So how do you view your role kind of leveraging both of them, right? To Michael's point, showing people a good time, highlighting the things that are attractive of your state, that kind of goes hand in hand, actually.
It does. And our agency, we do economic development and tourism. So under us, we have Travel Texas, which markets Texas as a tourism destination. And Texas is a big state, very diverse state with lots of things to do. And then we also focus on the creative industry. So we have the Texas Film Commission and the Texas Music Office are part of our office, in addition to sort of the traditional economic development of business recruitment. We do have a group that focuses on our existing businesses and making sure that they have what they need to be successful and to be able to grow. And so I think for the future, we work very closely together. Of course, tourism right now is the hardest hit of all of the industries with COVID through, the hospitality industry and destination marketing. And it's going to take some time for that industry to come back. But the good thing is that, again, Texas is a big state. It's a great drive market. So we are seeing kind of the tourism industry come back. We're seeing people traveling. Of course, they're not, doing air travel as much. They're doing, more road trips. But we are kind of seeing, the drive markets kind of come back and hotel occupancy go up. So, but I agree with Michael and Victor, as far as kind of what's needed for the future, that talent pipeline. Extremely important. And the other thing that we hear a lot from CEOs is that that state leadership, the leadership of the state, being a partner, having a reasonable regulatory climate, having a good business climate, being business friendly, all of those things really resonate with them.
So how do we adapt from a marketing standpoint, in the sense that like Art Basel, South by Southwest, these big kind of events and things, they draw, millions of people, right, who otherwise maybe weren't planning on going to a certain area, right? So that's an opportunity to showcase the state, the talent, the people, the diversity, the cuisine, the hospitality, and it's a little harder now with these kind of virtual, environments. And I think most places, like you look at New York, Broadway shut down till, mid 21, maybe later. How are you adapting and evolving to kind of still get in front of people and be top of mind? I mean, I think it's just such a challenging, marketing effort where it was kind of like you could rely on your own community ecosystem to kind of market itself, and they were doing part of your job for you in such a great natural way. So how do you think about that now moving forward?
So I think for a lot of states, there was a lot of focus on marketing efforts in terms of the great outdoors. You can travel and you can enjoy the state and you can social distance. You can be on a mountain or on a hill or out on a field or on a stream, and do some physical activity and be alone or be with your household and not necessarily be in a crowd of people. I think those crowd events right now are the ones that are challenging for some communities. So for our tourism efforts, we kind of shifted to a more of an inspirational message, more of a here's some beautiful scenery of the Texas hillside or the Texas beaches, and think about your travel in the future and think about Texas, because you're right, you want to stay top of mind, but you can't really, start overtly telling people fly to my state when flights are not happening.
Yeah, interesting. Victor, Michael? I mean, it's not directly in your day job per se, but I feel like some of this is just so tied in.
Yeah. So believe it or not, when I was with the state of Michigan, we had a similar construct. So tourism was one of my responsibilities. The whole Pure Michigan Tourism Campaign was one of the efforts that I led. And so I really get it. And coming to Miami, one of the first relationships I built was with the president and the Greater Miami Convention Visitors Bureau. So we work very actively with them. I'm on his board, he's on mine. And he had his annual meeting yesterday. And it was an in-person meeting, the first one they've had since April. And it was very well done with great social distancing. It was at the Miami Beach Convention Center. And they now have landed a couple of very large conventions that have decided to come. And they're coming in a combination. They're doing it not just strictly the old-fashioned way, but it's a combination of in-person and using technology like Zoom or some other technology. So they have this hybrid model that they think is going to be the transitional approach to bringing people back into our community for all the conventions and meetings and other things that we haven't been able to enjoy. The other thing is just really basic, in my humble opinion. We just need to, as a society, and I'm talking a national society, we need to wear masks. We need to use other PPP, hand sanitizer, wash our hands. I mean, all the most basic stuff that scientists and the medical professionals are telling us to do. We would be in a position to open businesses back up much more effectively than we can right now, because some of us choose to and some of us choose not to. I think it's that basic. And as we see folks using these recommended tools, the incidents are much lower. And we create this false narrative that it's either open businesses and some of us get sick and some die, or leave everything closed and kill our economy. The reality is, I think we can have it both ways. We can, in fact, start and do a much more effective job of reopening, but we've got to follow the basic rules and guidelines that's coming to us from the healthcare professionals and from scientists.
Interesting. Well, look, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure. We've had a lot of different conversations through this series, but I think having the opportunity to talk geographically with all of you from Texas to Miami to Northern Virginia about everything you're doing every single day to help stabilize and support small businesses and these the hospitality industry that was hit so hard during this, and also simultaneously help build an ecosystem for more talent to kind of have opportunities and grow while lots of friendly competition across all these borders. So I'm so grateful to you, to Victor, Michael, Adriana, for being here today on Coffee with Ken. Thank you to everyone tuning in. Our next conversation is going to be next Tuesday, October 22nd. We have the CEO of Teach for America and just like Michael mentioned, please remember, practice social distancing, wash your hands, wear a mask, and don't forget to vote in 12 days. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Have a good one. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.